So one of the biggest accusations against God is that God allows suffering. And, you know, because if God was a good God, why would he allow suffering? And it's because we don't realize that suffering exists because humans exist. He gave us free will. And so we are free willing at each other. And then add the layer that there are beings, entities, spirits, fallen angels, whatever, that have chosen to be against God and therefore hate humans. And so they are also influencing us. Before I became Christian, I actually really, even when I was an atheist and whatever, I really loved a movie called Constantine. And it's with Keanu Reeves. And it, to me, now looking back on it with the eyes of being a Christian, showed so effectively how the subtle nudges, one way or the other, would influence people to take actions one way or another. And so you could have these entities planting like a nudge, a whisper, a thought. And once I realized like, oh, not all my thoughts are my thoughts, that was like a huge game changer because when we listen to our brain and our thoughts and we think, oh, these are all my thoughts, and I am this person and these are my things that I'm thinking, we identify with them. When we start to recognize that's not the case, we can start to deal with the thoughts differently. And even in like the secular world, we understand this as well. Because I would see people talking about like, oh, depression lies. Don't believe the thoughts that you're getting while you're depressed. Those are not your thoughts. Those are not real thoughts. So even though the secular world isn't saying things in the same way the Christian world is, there's this understanding that not every thought we think is our thought. There's also like a French phrase for intrusive thoughts. You know, the thought that comes in your mind where it's like, well, I could just jump. Um, oh, what if I just drove into this traffic right now? Like these thoughts that come out of nowhere that would destroy you basically. And so from a secular perspective, they're like, oh, everybody has these like intrusive thoughts and those are normal. Um, but possibly also, maybe they're coming from entities that would like us to destroy ourselves. So there is a book that I became familiar with like a long time ago. It's why I started the abuse subreddit. Um, it's Philip Zimbardo's The Lucifer Effect. And the idea was that the more vectors of intersection you have in terms of factors uh, that can move you toward making certain choices versus just intrinsically being oriented like in a bad way, let's say, or in a good way even. And so that the more of the vectors that line up, uh, the more likely you are to choose to do bad things versus or good things. And so when you're under stress, when you don't have enough resources, when you're trying to protect yourself or others, when you are fighting for your life, even. On another channel, I was talking about ACEs. So those are adverse childhood experiences. So, like a lot of compounding trauma, even you can get to a point where you are more likely to harm another person than you would have been otherwise. Or line up the right circumstances, good home, good job, friends, etc. All these protective factors, you're more likely to make, let's say, good choices. And so, again, it's the secular version of, angel on one side, devil on the other, whispering things to you. And it's like, okay, which thoughts do I follow? What decisions do I make? Um, Now, Dr. Philip Zimbardo is the guy who ran the Stanford experiment in 1971, and that's the one where he hired some like college students to be either guards or prisoners, and then the experiment got way out of hand. And we have, looking back on it, we see that he did some not scientifically rigorous things that sort of influenced the experiment. I think They weren't ever able to replicate it in the same way. But that understanding to me that he wrote about in the Lucifer effect, those compounding factors, that has always been something that made sense to me quite a bit. Um, okay, so God gives us free will. And then also there are these angels that fell that are influencing how we use that free will. And so here we are free willing at each other. And this literally the story of the Bible, Genesis, starts off with God creating earth and then God creating mankind and then giving mankind dominion over the earth. That's, by the way, why he has to make Eve out of Adam's side and not like from the earth the way he made Adam, because he makes in the Bible makes Adam from the earth, and then if he makes Eve, and then he gives Adam dominion over the earth. So if he makes Eve out of earth, then Adam is going to have dominion over Eve because that's what she's made of. No, so he makes her. The Hebrew word's more like side, and it's more of like an equal counterpart. It's not this rib. I don't know why they did that. So anyway, we have dominion over the earth and ourselves. The entire Bible is essentially a slap fight over tricking humans into giving up that dominion or tricking humans into using that dominion in ways that are evil and wrong and oppress other human beings. So this is an entire chess game that's happening between God and the enemy. And he's already figured it out. So what God does is he takes the terrible things that happen and he turns them to the good for those who love him. And I think it's really specific. It's not for everybody. It's for those who love him. So just to be extra, in case he's, good on that, I was like, Lord, I pray to love you because I would like things to be turned to the good. I'm tired. I don't want to do any more of I don't want to do any more of the nonsense. Um, so not everybody has it turned to the good because not everyone is giving God dominion to do that. Right. So it's not just about do you love God, but you only love God if you understand him and if you've given him dominion to work in you and in your life. God is very respectful of boundaries. Throughout the entire Bible, there are boundaries, and about like there's a boundary, a distinction between angels and human beings, not just in their function but also in literally the places where they are. There are boundaries between places and people and things, and so often that's one of the slap fights in our culture, but I'm not going to do that in this video. So God's real big on boundaries. He gives us dominion and he gives us self empowerment, dominion over ourselves and over what we do. And he respects that. He doesn't come in and power over people unless, in my opinion, he starts powering over people. But he'll let it go a long time until the sin is fulfilled, because that way he can deal with them in exactly the way that he wants to. It's like if you bust somebody on something simple and they're like, oh, well, it's just this little thing. I mean, there's nothing, I'm not a, you shouldn't be coming after me like this. When in reality, they were going to do the whole thing. And God knows they're going to do the whole thing, but it wouldn't be just to punish someone for not doing the whole thing. So he allows them to do the whole thing. And then he works to rescue people who ask for his help to be rescued, who are asking for his protection, who are coming to him and saying, I want to be yours. The other thing too is that there are some places where it looks like where God has more dominion, um, there's more efficacy, maybe. So for example, he says something like, I will bless you in the land where I've caused my name to be honored. I think that that's because if he's caused his name to be honored there's enough people there that are providing a covering and a spiritual access and an altar, a dimension. So for example, like Daniel, he's in the camp of the enemy essentially, or dealing with the enemy, and it takes like 21 days? It takes like days for the angels to get to him. So as soon as he said his prayer to God, there was a response. He sent an angel, but the angel couldn't get through there was like a fight in the second heaven. So there's something about the more in the camp of the enemy you are, um, the more there's like a principality there that's in charge, has dominion. So it takes more effort for angels to get through. And so I think that's why fasting empowers that that divine response, praying, singing, because you want to make an access point, an altar where heaven intersects with earth. Or if you've watched my other videos, where the dimension, the realms that God is or the angels are, can more strongly intersect with the earth. Um, so we have free will. We often use this free will to oppress others, and but God gives people who turn to him and give him dominion. He gives them rescue. He gives them help. So he's essentially like trying to fix this broken world. I'll give you an example. So when I was growing up, I was raised by my father in the 80s. So it was not normal for men to get sole custody of children in the 80s. So he got custody of me and my brother. He tried to kill me twice. He also was abusive. And so I grew up, I didn't want to exist. I wished my parents had gotten an abortion. I did not understand why I had to be here. And so anyway, I was just like, oh, he's terrible. I mean, it's not like entirely wrong. But I always thought, oh, if I got to live with my mom, it would be so much better. It would be so much better. My life would be so much better. And it turned out after I got kicked out of foster care when I was 16, I lived with my mom for a month. I learned that I would be a crazy person if I'd grown up with my mother. I was like, oh, I had the better outcome. I had no idea because as physically violent as my dad was and all the things that he was doing, um, he never made me think I was a crazy person. We always had a beat on reality for the most part. My mom called the cops on me for running away, and I was standing there in absolute shock because I was literally standing there, like in the home, while and I'm just like, what is happening? Because this is, I have no explanation. I just knew, oh no, I'm in trouble. I don't know how to deal with this. This is not related to reality. This boy is not a safe person. So when I became Christian, I ended up praying, covering safety protection over myself, like from when I was a kid, because God's outside of time. And so I can do that. I can remember all the times my dad tried to kill me because he told me, he was like, yeah, I was gonna smother you with a pillow when you were an infant because you were crying. And then something just said stop. So I put the pillow down. It was the same thing that happened when I was 16. He was choking me and he was choking me down to the ground. And I just remember being super calm and I was just saying, Dad, you need to take your hands off me. You need to take your hands off my neck. You need to take your hands off my neck. And he just at some point just stopped, got up and started laughing and then told me how proud of me he was. And it was so strange. I was like, I don't understand what's happening. And now, with the eyes of being a Christian, I think an angel intervened. I think an angel protected me. And part of it is that influence, right? So I prayed that back into the past. I'm like, that I think that's what happened. And just to be sure, I'm just gonna do it. Um, so there are these ways in which we're hurting each other. And but also God, because we're in this experience in this 4D realm, right? We're in the physical realm where we can touch and see um things, and also we're moving through time. We have the ability to we're not just who we are in a moment, we have the ability to choose to be better. We have the ability to choose to be worse, but we also have the ability to choose to be better. And so there are people that God is trying to move in the direction of not just goodness, but in relationship with him. And then there are people who are end up being given over to their sin. So the way the spiritual realm works is that God's in the third heaven, angels are in the second heaven, and then human beings are on earth. And in my other video, I talk about dimensions and more physics aspect of that. But some angels can go into the court of heaven. And so this is the thing that the enemy is doing. This is the thing that Satan is doing. Satan is the name, it's a title, it's the accuser. Satan is the one who goes to God and says, this person did something wrong. You should punish them. You're a just God, right? If you're a just God, you should punish this person. Well, think about how God sees all of us and all the ways we're interacting with each other. And so he saw how this person as a child was horrifically abused and then went on with what we know to be maladaptive coping mechanisms, went on to hurt other people. Right? So what's justice? Also, can this person get better? So when we're Christian, Jesus becomes our advocate. Jesus goes in front of the Lord and says, you know, you should see me. And I already was convicted for this sin. This person is justice has already been served. But for people who haven't made Jesus their savior, they're having to go under the law. And so they may have consequences like in this life. Now, the interesting thing is when you look around and you see, why is it the most garbage people seem to have never have any consequences? Well, they're accomplishing the desires of the enemy. They're destroying people. They're being evil in this world. So the enemy's not going to God and saying, oh, this person, you should come after this person. They're not experiencing consequences in this world. They are doing the work of Satan, of the angels who've fallen, who hate human beings. And so they are not getting any kind of like consequences right now because the enemy's like, nah, that's what I want. And in fact, the Bible says that people that are doing the will of the enemy can't go to sleep unless they've like harmed another person. Like they have no rest unless they've gone after somebody. Um, and on a side note, whenever I'm looking at an abuse dynamic or even like a geopolitical dynamic, I look at like who do I have to remove from this situation for it to stop? That's often the person that is the person who is like the true, let's say, aggressor. Because it gets to a point where it's hard on the outside. If you try and protect yourself by also being aggressive or violent or whatever, you finally figured out like, oh, I can't, we can't do this anymore. Right. Um, so okay, I'm gonna fight on my own behalf. There's a reason why Jesus says don't fight on your own behalf. And there's a reason why Jesus didn't lay hands on nobody before he went to the cross, because the Jews were expecting a Messiah to come who was going to be like David, who was going to be like, I'm going to come in and destroy the enemy. And that's what they wanted. They wanted David. But interestingly, if you look in the Old Testament, which I don't know why Jews don't, but if you look in the Old Testament, God says to David, you can't build my house. You've spilled too much blood, but I will build a home for you. Your son will build a house for me. So it's his son, Solomon, who actually builds the temple. It's not David. David can't do it because he spilled blood. There are these spiritual laws that are in effect. And so when we are trying to make things better by coming in with physical like force, what we unintentionally do is we now put things on our own soul, on our own ledger, things that we are now doing wrong. And we don't think about it that way because we think we're defending ourselves. Instead, Christians are taught you go to God and you say, God, can you take care of this? And God can do it because he's God. He has total sovereignty. He's allowed to. And then we've given him permission by asking him to. We've given him dominion and authority to act in our lives on the situation. So yeah. What was the other thing I was gonna say? There's a lot. There's a lot. Anyway, it turned into kind of a long video, but The idea being being a victim in this realm means that you are not doing something wrong against another person. We don't want to be a victim. And so we're like, oh, how do I get myself out of this? Instead of waiting for the Lord to act. And I say this as somebody who has been there. So I understand why we hate it. Because we don't, it's not fair. It's not fair what's happening to us, and it's evil and it's wrong. That was the other thing I wanted to say. So that's why Jesus doesn't do anything, because when they put him on the cross, he has to be perfectly innocent of having done absolutely nothing. There has to be nothing he is guilty of. And therefore, that's why Jesus's death gives him authority over death, because he didn't do anything wrong. He was murdered and he was a completely innocent person. That's why Christians are always like, oh, he lived a perfect life, died a perfect death, blah, blah, blah. Because he never hurts anybody while he's on earth. And in fact, when Peter he tries to cut off that guy's ear, the soldier's ear that are coming to take Jesus away. Jesus heals the ear. And he's like, nah, dude, we're not doing that. Lets him take them away like a lamb to the slaughter, lets them kill him, and doesn't do anything until he comes back resurrected. Well, why? Because once he died, he was able to inhabit his full godhood. So now he has sovereignty. He can do what he wants. He had the human experience, so he could be in this realm. He is also the Word, so he's the Bible, so he's in this realm. And now he was, as a human being, he never forsake God. Like while he's on the cross, he says, my Lord, why have you forsaken me? But he never forsakes God, and he never speaks badly about God. And so therefore he never makes a mistake. He never sins in any way, and therefore when he dies, the enemy created an avenue for which there is power for anyone who believes in Jesus. And even the name Jesus means God rescues. And if you look in the Bible, it says all you have to do, even to those who believe in his name, you don't even have to believe that Jesus died and rose again to be saved. The name itself, Yeshua, means God rescues. All you have to believe is that God rescues. If you believe God rescues, you believe in the name of Jesus, and you can be rescued. Anyway, that's a lot. So sorry. I will talk to you next time.